Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and welcome back to a best of 5 series of top level StarCraft 2. Now what I've got for you today is something special, something that I've been personally looking forward to myself. It's time for a best of 5 series between two of my absolute favorite players in the world right now. Both of these guys are ridiculously good. This series was recently played as part of the IEM Katowice qualifiers, a premier tournament that will take place in just a couple of weeks' time. And while the matches were broadcasted live as well, I purposely resisted the urge to check out the VODs because I wanted to cast these games as soon as the replays were available. So now that they are, let's go ahead and have a look at this series where we start off on World of Sleepers. Spawning in the top right-hand corner of the map. Playing here with the blue Zerg drones. They call this man the GOAT, although that's not considered to be an insult. It's an abbreviation for the greatest of all time. We're looking inside of the main base of Serral. I mean, what is there to say about Serral? This man has basically won it all. He's ridiculously good. He's still very far ahead of the rest, at least when it comes to the points on Aligulac. And he's probably also the man who is pretty much single-handedly the reason why Zerg got nerfed. Okay? I mean, I'll just come out and say it. I'm pretty sure that because of Serral's success, it's one of the main reasons why Zerg has gotten hit by the nerf bet pretty hard, especially a couple of months ago. His opponent, though, in the bottom left-hand corner, playing here with the red Terran SCVs. This man just recently overtook Dark, the current world champion of StarCraft 2, in points on Aligulac. He's the current number 2 on that website. Now, obviously, you gotta take that with a grain of salt. It's not necessarily the most accurate, but there's no denying that he's getting really good. I'm a massive fan. We're looking inside of the main base of Cure. Alrighty. Now, one of the things that I noticed is that Cure is really focusing still on playing that bio-based unit composition. It seems like pretty much every single Terran player that I've casted games of over the last couple of weeks are favoring that mech-based playstyle. I don't really know exactly what Serral does right now. The thing is, Serral doesn't really participate in online tournaments. He barely shares any of his games. He doesn't really live stream. We don't really get to see this guy play very often. We just see him sitting on the European ladder with like 400 MMR over the number 2. I don't even really know how that's possible. Because at that point, you have to have a win-loss ratio that's probably like 1 in 30 or something. Like, if you lose more than 1 in 30, your MMR will probably go down. It's pretty ridiculous because obviously he's only placing, or he's only facing off against other top-level players as well. There's no denying that Serral's very good, and I'm especially gonna have a look at what kind of style he wants to play here in this series, because I've honestly not seen him play any ZVTs ever since the new multiplayer balance patch went live, other than the games that he played at Home Story Cup and then also during Nation Wars. Now, those tournaments are already about a month or two ago at this point, so they were very shortly after the new patch went live. Curious to see how he has developed over the last few weeks. Alrighty, so this is already pretty cool. He decides to go for the Overlord speed upgrade. Now, one of the most common questions that I get is, Lowko, what separates the number 1 Zerg from like the number 3 Zerg? What's the difference? Now, one of the things that Serral does very diligently is that he scouts like crazy. He's very set on scouting constantly. He knows exactly what it is you're going for, and he's one of the big fans of that Overlord speed really early on. It's pretty curious, though, because all of the other top-level Zergs, like, for example, Dark, like, for example, Raynor, like, for example, Sue, like, for example, Roach, none of them go for the Nematized Carapace upgrade early. I was actually curious going into this series if that's still something that he's playing. Well, apparently it is. Here we go. Overlord does decide to move straight into the main base. Looks like there's actually also one moving over here towards where the structures are built. And this is going to give Serral the perfect time to respond to whatever it is that the Terran player is going for. It is going to be that very standard 1-1-1 here from Cure. We'll have to see if he wants to make that transition towards Mech here in just a little bit. So like I said, right, pretty much all the top-level Terrans right now are playing Terran Mech against Zerg. Not so much Cure, though. I don't really know exactly why. Maybe he doesn't like it. A lot of the other Zerg players actually have recently been very vocal about how much they dislike that Mech style. So I'm curious to see how Serral takes the approach here, because most of the other ZVTs that I've seen are Zerg players going for some sort of timing attack just because they want to prevent it going to that stage in the game. I mean, if there is a player, though, that can play that late game style, I feel like Serral would be the one, so let's just keep an eye out on exactly what will go down in this series. Okay. So what's this actually scouted right now? So Serral saw that it was 1 reactor and 1 tech lab. He's already preparing with a Baneling nest and then also a lair. He's got a couple of spore crawlers coming up. It is indeed going to be that bio-based style. Now, seeing those structures that Serral saw doesn't necessarily mean that it is going to be that bio-based style, but I guess he's seen a couple of additional marines. He's once again checking out what's going on. He sees the addition right now of another barracks, especially close to that reactor. It's very clear that this is going to be a bio-based transition, also by scouting those engineering bases. So while Cure decide to, or try to, you know, deny that scouting information, it wasn't denied, and Serral knows exactly what it is that he's going up against right now. I'm really curious, though, as to why I haven't seen Cure really play that mech-based army very much. What I also like, though, about this whole situation right now for Cure is that he is actually just going straight up against Serral. I think a lot of people would be very intimidated. A lot of people do stupid strats against Serral, and, well, that generally speaking also doesn't work. But, yeah, Cure is just taking the most macro-heavy approach, not really taking any gambles here, just doing what he's most comfortable playing with. I don't really know exactly how many series he's played against Serral, but I'm pretty sure this is the only one in 2020 so far, just because Serral barely plays any tournaments. Other than the big ones. There was this running joke for a little bit that if you don't have an at least $100,000, you know, prize pool, Serral doesn't participate. Well, I mean, it's true for IM Katowice, I guess. Serral actually closing in on $1 million for prize money. Wouldn't be surprised if he's going to be the one, the very first one this year, actually, to go over $1 million in prize money. Eventually, this Overlord will likely get picked off.
Mineral cluster expended.
Never mind. It, for some reason, still lives with just 1 hit point intact. It's got to start regenerating some health here. But Cure already secured the expansion here on the low ground. This honestly looks like a very old-school style of Terran versus Zerg, though, to be completely honest with you. Serral actually made a bit of a mistake, I think. He did not go for the +1 melee upgrade yet. And, yeah, that's gonna hurt. Yeah, he finally finds out right now. Okay, I was gonna say, this is about a, I don't know, a half upgrade late right now. Quite significant, actually, especially in a straight-up macro game like this. You can see here that Terran is already just about to finish up 1-1, and then that, you know, 1 melee upgrade to just start it up. Obviously not the end of the world, but I'm liking this position for Cure a ton. Must be a nice confidence boost, actually, if you can somehow, some way just, you know, straight up win against Serral in a macro game, right? That would be excellent. And honestly, like, I really don't mind. I really have no preference here. I would love to see Serral continue to dominate, but I also really want to see a new player, or a relatively new player, at the top. That would be sick. Great denying right there of the creep. Apparently that's what those Banshees are primarily used for. I think the Lynx were actually about to set themselves up to go for a big run-by. Now already, Cure is actually creating what seems to be like a second wall. Very cool. So maybe he's planning on getting this base up as his 4th instead. Wouldn't be surprised to see that. Neither player, though, really taking any gambles here whatsoever. I wonder if Serral is just going to go for like an all-out assault as soon as +1 finishes here. There's no planetary fortress on the low ground, and he knows about that. So not having the planetary there is really quite nice. He does now also, however, see the lack of a 4th command center. So the 4th CC here is rather late. Maybe he is anticipating a push here from the Terran player instead. Cure continues to scan over here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map. Gonna snipe some of those creep tumors. And honestly, I feel like both of these players are really trying to like feel each other out here in the first game. Not taking any risks, not taking any gambles. Just trying to play their most comfortable playstyle that they can. Looks like eventually, at least one of those Banshees will be picked off. Despite them, though, denying a lot of creep. The creep, obviously, is already very far out onto the map. Rather than expanding south, since they recently adjusted this base, Banshee actually falls as well, but they recently adjusted that base. Serral is actually expanding towards the north, also just not going for the base here in the center. Just because they only have a single gas mining location. But here we go. Big push finally coming up here for Cure. I think he really wants to engage as soon as +2/+2 finishes up, but the Banelings and the Zerglings are coming in for the counterattack. Good defense so far. One of the tanks does fall. It mostly comes down here to the follow-up, right? How much damage can you really get done? Not a whole lot so far. Looks like the Banelings, though, are hunting down the SCVs right now. Great defense here initially. 8 SCVs in total. I feel like that's very reasonable. At the same time, Cure also microing in the middle of the map, trying to deny some creep. Yeah, 8 SCVs is not great. You'd rather not, but I mean, he also ended up killing an awful lot of units there for it. I mean, not all of the Banelings show up because these are only the Banelings that were killed, not the ones that actually exploded. And now that 2-2 has finished, I feel like Cure can actually go for a push. Yeah, look at this. He knows that there's not going to be the option for a big attack anytime soon here for Zerg unless he wants to really commit a lot of units to the counter. He's just going to commit all of his units, all the Terran units that is, to this big offensive right now. Great pullback there on those bio units. Siege tanks get some massive shots. Very aggressive move out right here onto the creep. You don't split Marines on creep, but somehow, some way, he's doing it. What a ridiculous control there by Cure. Such a difficult engagement to take. All of the siege tanks, though, in the back do get picked off. Gotta keep in mind here, I think a couple other SCVs actually also ended up dying there to like a Ling Bane counterattack. Gotta keep in mind here, though, that there's not much of a follow-up for the Terran player either. There's no 4th command center. Decent enough splits this time around, but not nearly as good as that first time. Serral still happily macroing up. Once again, Lynx over in the center of the map. Yeah, that fight was pretty good there initially for Cure. But Serral, I mean, he didn't take any critical damage. He went in for a couple of counterattacks. All of a sudden, Cure found himself with only 3 command centers, 42 SCVs. And Serral, he didn't take the best fights, but he just simply had a lot more stuff. I wonder if for a moment there, Serral thought, oh crap. Because when the Terran player first started splitting those Marines against Speed Banes on creep, it looked for a little bit as if the Terran player was going to be able to overwhelm the Zerg. And I think that was what Cure was going for. The thing is, though, Cure was scouted very, very hard, right? Serral knew that there was no 4th command center to be seen anywhere. Because he had that overlord speed from earlier, he just kept checking around to see what was going on. So most of the time, Zergs at that point in the game will go up to like 85, maybe even 90 drones. And if that was what Serral did in that previous game, he probably would have been in a lot of trouble. I think he went up to about 75 or so, just knowing that there was no 4th command center, only a 3rd one. He knew that Terran could really only support up to about 66 workers. So, you know, that's 22 per base. So as long as he just simply held on to the inevitable push, knowing that there was no 4th CC, he would be in a decent enough spot. But for a moment there, though, it really did look like Cure was going to have a marvelous engagement, but he just lost a little bit in the meantime at home as well. Sadly, I missed a couple of those Ling Bane run-bys. I mean, I'm just a one-man production team. It's actually the nicest thing. I've casted a bunch of offline events at this point, and usually at offline events, especially the bigger ones in StarCraft 2, there's a dedicated observer. So basically, when you're a commentator at one of those events, there's another person observing, and they're the ones that are, you know, tasked with catching all the action on camera. And we just see what the observer sees as well, which is very, very easy because it makes the talking part of things just way more straightforward, right? That way you can't really miss a lot of action either, or at the very least, you're not the one to blame. Every once in a while, though, I will miss an engagement, not because I choose to, but just because, well, believe it or not, I'm actually human. Unlike these two players. I mean, they are clearly not human, but I'm afraid I am. Anyways, I kind of hope that Serral decides once again to go for that Overlord speed upgrade. I haven't seen, like I said, right, a lot of Zerg players go for that style in ZVT, but it really seemed to be extremely good there for Serral. The main reason why a lot of players don't want to go for the Overlord speed is that it's expensive. So going for the Overlord speed is pretty pricey. I think he wants to, because otherwise you would poke in a little bit further with this Overlord to check out what's going on that ramp. I think he will probably start up Overlord speed here. And yeah, so he actually did the same thing last game. So most of the time, right, if you want to go for the quick 3 hatchery build, you pull 2 drones out of gas at 100. So you go link speed, and then you pull 2 drones out of gas. But Serral decides to leave 2 drones in gas, just pull out 1, which I guess allows him to get the gas income a little bit quicker. Still get the 3rd command center, or the 3rd hatchery, rather. He wishes he could make command centers. He still can get the 3rd hatchery at a reasonable time. And he will probably then get the Overlord speed started here in just a little bit again as well. I think. I'm not entirely sure. We'll see. I wonder, though, what kind of approach Cure is going to take, right? Because in that previous game, I mean, it looked like a normal macro game from him, but in the end, it was just primarily a timing attack, right? Just a 3cc 2-2 timing attack, and well, that is a little bit late. Once again, by the way, Nemesis Carapace. So there it is. While the timing attack was late, I mean, the execution was perfect, obviously. It's like a late timing attack in the world of timing attacks. He didn't, like, execute it poorly. He just simply was, you know, letting Zerg do whatever for, like, the first, I don't know, 10 minutes or so. I hope that he's going to take a more standard approach, because it did kind of feel like he was adjusting his playstyle there a bit near the end. There's also this weird thing when you face against one of the very best, that you want to show that you can play a normal macro game, but you're also worried of like making a small mistake, and playing the macro game is very hard. So oftentimes you know, when you play in tournaments, you go back to like your poor playstyle, one that you actually haven't practiced very much. So once again, everything gets scouted. The timing there of the third command center gets spotted. The tech lab gets spotted. The reactor is spotted as well. Even the fusion core now also is under the knowledge here of the Finnish Zerg. So it means that everything once again gets scouted absolutely perfectly. Whenever I see these kind of games, it makes me wonder why we don't see Zerg players go for Overlord speed more often. So I've gone for Overlord speed quite a bit myself. The thing is though, it's kind of expensive, and like it cuts into your queen production, and like it slows all of your other tech down. The majority of the time where we see other Zerg players also getting Overlord speed at the highest level is when they go up against someone who they think is significantly weaker than them, so they can afford the 200 resources that it takes early on. But honestly, like, Serral makes it look very straightforward. Like, it makes it look like a no-brainer, you know? Like, why would you not get Overlord speed early on? Doesn't seem to be much of a reason. Okay, so once again, we see the lair coming up. This time around, though, also a Roach Warren added in. So I like the Fusion Core a lot. Fusion Core builds, they're amazing. I'm glad that Battle Cruisers are still part of the meta. When they first announced all of those Battle Cruiser changes, I was a little bit worried that it was gonna, like, you know, once again diminish from the current meta of StarCraft 2. I'm a big fan of the Battle Cruiser openers. I think they're really strong. And actually, you know what? I see additional factories going up. Cure is gonna go for that mech transition here in just a little bit as well. Very cool. Not something we see him play all too often. Serral still hanging out with his overlords, man. He's gonna scout this in a little bit. There it is. Battle Cruiser is gonna be spotted. And, well, with that, also, the factories get spotted. So Serral knows what it is he needs to go up against. Starts up the +1 missile at the perfect time. Queen's in the main base. Queen's at the third base. This, like, look at this. Look how clean this is. Are you watching this? That is so clean. The wall over here also prevents these Hellions from going up that ramp. So the Roaches just simply march towards where those Hellions are. Now, you could certainly take a little bit of damage, though, because there's really not that much of the Zerg available. Still, though, Queens, Zerglings setting themselves up for a surround. Perfect defense here by the Finnish Phenom. Yeah, this was pretty much as clean as it can be. Like, I've not seen a single drone go down against a build that is supposed to kill drones. Like, if you don't kill anything here, as the Terran player, you're actually in a little bit of trouble. Yeah, you kill one creep tumor, man. It's like a Hydra's head, you know? Or Medusa's head? I don't remember which one, but basically you kill one head and like a bunch of them return once again. Now it looks like he's gonna be able to get a couple of worker kills here eventually. There you go. One. You got one. Lynx in the meantime going in for a counterattack. Overseer also scouting around. It is gonna be a heavy focus, by the way, on these battle cruisers. I like it a lot, but there is also a powerful timing attack coming up here for the Zerg player. Zerg is sitting on a very decent economy. Spire is going to finish in a little bit. And Zerg can actually go for a timing attack with, like, say 10, 15 Corruptors and then a ton of Roaches. That's a scary push because Terran obviously commits a lot of resources into those battle cruisers, especially when it's continued production, which Serral knows about. He knows that the Yamato cannon is coming up as well. He saw the research being upgraded. The battle cruisers, you know, are going to have that beautiful big ability here in just a little bit. The weapon refit, it's done. There we go. 11 Corruptors coming up. Roaches will finish up their Roach speed upgrade. And I'm actually a little bit worried here. I don't really know exactly if... by the way, Queen did go down to the Yamato gun. But I don't really know exactly if Serral is going to commit. But this is a scary position to be in, right? Because after being in the driver's seat for like the first 7 minutes of this game, this is the moment where Cure has to sit back. It's even going to be a Nydus worm right now together with an infestation pit. Okay. So Cure is going to make the transition right now towards the standard Terran mech army. He's going double armory upgrades. So usually if you want to play a more active, like a more aggressive style of Terran mech, you go for the single armory. If you want to play the more macro-focused one, the more passive approach, you go for the double armory. So judging by the fact that there's 2 armory, I don't think he really wants to move out anytime soon. Here's the thing though, these Corruptors are hunting. I don't really see a lot of, okay. I don't really see a lot of missile turrets set up, so you gotta be careful here. 4th command center, by the way, made much, much earlier this time. There's the engineering bay, by the way. That will unlock both of the planetary fortress, as well as those missile turrets. Very important. But I think that Serral actually is going for Roach Corruptor and then Swarm Host in a Nydus Worm. Pretty sure Serral is one of the players that is causing the nerf to the Nydus Worm. As a matter of fact, I actually think that Serral is one of the main reasons why Zerg got gutted pretty hard in the most recent patch. He makes it look pretty broken, but a lot of those strategies, while they are weaker, they are still 100% viable. Okay, so let's have a look. Corruptors, Swarm Hosts, Nydus Worms, and Roaches. So I think what he plans on doing is put those Nydus Worms, you know, in like locations where the locusts can fly very easily, and then the Swarmers can pop back in by the time that Terran gets across. You have to play this Nydus Whack-A-Mole style. Perfect. Perfect positioning, even though that supply depot is pretty far out. It doesn't see it until it will finish. There's the locust wave coming up. Swarmers in the meantime already again on the other side of the map. There are a couple of Hellions over here though, so I don't really mind this all too much either for the Terran. A couple of Hellions go down, a couple of Hellbats go down at the same time. Swarmers are now unloading over here in this position as well. A couple of Locusts get activated. They will kill whatever they can. And then they will once again get out of there. Planetary Fortress, though, on the low ground does finish up. And that's critical. I think one of the strongest styles here, and one of the strongest positions to be in when you're Zerg, is when you can successfully contain the Terran player on 3 bases. Considering the fact that already the 4th command center right now is secured, I don't mind this position very much whatsoever actually for Cure. Yeah, he's gonna have to play Nydus Whack-A-Mole. Yeah, with one mistake, this is gonna be game over. But he's gonna be able to get to a maxed out army here rather convincingly. Now, this was huge, actually. He gets like 3 or so siege tanks there. They do not have the immortality protocol of co-op, so they can't just, you know, be repaired for free. And this Nydus style is really getting out of hand if you don't pay very, very careful attention. Baneling Nest is coming up. We see the lair being morphed into a hive right now as well. Serral, like I said, he's in the driver's seat ever since about the 7-minute or so mark. He knows exactly what's going on the side of Terran, but I'm looking at the supply count. I feel like the Nydus Whack-A-Mole style is very good, especially when the Terran player has less than, say, 150 supply. Cure is already gonna be able to max out here very soon. He's gonna have 2 upgrades here finishing up very soon as well. He's going for a 2nd fusion core. I think that's a mistake, but also a 2nd starport. So that's nice. I like that a lot better. Ooh, those Thors actually putting in a lot of work. Here we go. Big push moving forward by Serral. Gets a couple of siege tanks. Gets the Thor as well. Also, in the meantime, bows down a couple of those units. But you know what? Once again, Cure holds on just fine. He loses a bunch of units. As you can see right here, the cost efficiency of that Nydus Swarm Host style is absolutely amazing. But I mean, eventually, I've got a feeling that Cure is going to be able to get a much stronger army. One thing to keep in mind here is that Zerg has got 1,000,001 supply. Okay, more like, I don't know, 60 or so supply caught up in those Swarm Hosts. And the Swarm Hosts really lose their value as time goes by. I feel like Swarm Hosts are great, especially against weaker players. But I'm not sure how it really is going to play out, say, like a half year or so from now against, like, the best of the best. Because everyone's getting better at dealing with this. It's just so different, right? Okay, so once again, Serral playing very aggressively. Lands a bunch of those locusts, though, really beautifully. Ugh. Those caustic sprays, they hurt. And, well, this is what I mean, man. Serral single-handedly makes Zerg seem so broken. You know what's funny, right? Like, I've casted a lot of games of Terran Mech over the last few weeks. I mean, I've read the comments on those. I've seen a lot of you guys post, oh my god, Zerg literally can't win a single game. And then we watch Serral dismantle it so far. Well, I mean, don't cheer too early though. Cure is maxed out. I mean, well, maxed out as in like 20 supply on the production tab still, but he's getting to a point where he's maxed out. And this is the moment where he can also really start moving across the map. A lot of missile turrets set up over here. But you see what I mean, though? I feel like this kind of playstyle is going to get weaker as time goes by, as Terran players get better at defending it. Because I think on paper, it's not the greatest strategy to play. Because right now, you have those, like, Swarm Host over here, and they're kind of awkward. Like, they're not going to be much of a match here against his main force. Also, one thing to keep in mind is that Serral never actually got himself a very large army. So he's actually only sitting at 67 supply. For the drones, that is. So Terran is mining a lot more. So this is like kind of like opposite world, you know? +3 actually also gets the Knight there, which is quite huge. But normally it's the Zerg player that's harvesting more. This time around it's the Terran player that's harvesting more because Serral is sitting on such a high amount of supply for those swarm hosts. Now, speaking of swarm hosts, here's the locust wave. Say goodbye to your siege tanks. There we go. That is very painful. I think that's 4 or so siege tanks going down. Looks like a couple of corrosive balls land in the meantime as well. Cure, though, did end up losing the command center on the other side of the map, but he's re-securing the position of the map that he lost previously. Brute Lords are now finally morphing into something a little bit more useful. It's going to be those... oh, God, that's nice. It's going to be those Brute Lords. There's not a whole lot of anti-air, but we've seen how Terran players feel about making anti-air units. They love going for those Thors right now. Very aggressive position here for Cure. I think he probably decided that this wasn't going to be an army that was going to go home anyway. I feel like these couple of Relied-in Thors, though, might be a little bit much. The Brute Lords coming in right now from the left-hand side as well. I think Cure may have overstayed his welcome. He knows exactly what it is he's going up against right now, though. And if the Zerg wants to go for a counter-offensive, it's going to take these Brutes like 4.5 minutes before they fly across the map, okay? Command centers being constructed all over the map. This is the moment where Cure is making that transition towards the dream Terran Mech army. Did he already finish up +3 armor? He didn't yet. He didn't start it yet. Okay, that's pretty important. But he's going for that very aggressive Thor-based unit composition. Thors can just gun those brutes out of the sky so easily, though. There's not that many, there's not that many Thors, but, I mean... They outrange Brute Lords now, right? Which is huge. Swarm hosts from earlier still available. Queens right now pulled away from their hatcheries as well. What? You run out of Marines? Wait, no. They're not the SCVs, but... They're still going to be here, I guess, for transfuses on those Brute Lords. Big Locust Wave, once again, flies in from the left. Left of that army, that is. But most of the Locusts immediately do get burned. Corruptors land their Corrosive Balls actually very nicely. And you know what? I think this Queen push may just be something that Cure is not expecting. Very cool engagement here for Serral. Right now, the Cure is falling back to that anchor point, right? That planetary fortress. Planetaries are absolutely amazing. Only a couple of Brute Lords still remain. Another Nydus Worm is right now ready to probably bring in some reinforcements. Planetary, though, eventually will go down. SCVs, in the meantime, repairing up the siege tanks in the back. They are getting a lot of work done. Look at that target firing as well by Cure. I love it. He's even target firing there with the siege tanks. Target firing down separately with the Thors as well. Trying to shoot down as many of those Locusts before they land. But once again, a massive Locust Wave does land on top of all of that Terran Mech. I think that Serral may have just broken the Terran player. GG is called. And Serral obtains the victory, making this series 2-0. Alright, so that brings us to Triton LE. I wonder what Cure is thinking right now. He's like, okay, I played my bio game in game number 1. I played my mech game in game number 2. Both of them obviously didn't go perfectly. They didn't go flawless, especially the bio game. But Serral just simply had his number, right? Especially game number 2, though. That was very close. I mean, if Serral didn't make those Brute Lord transitions, which not a lot of Zerg players actually do, like, especially off of 67 or so workers that he had at that point, making the transition towards Brute Lords is actually very expensive. So Serral did decide to actually go up towards a Hive and then also get that Brute Lord tech. A lot of other Zerg players, for example, would opt to go for Vipers at that point instead, and I don't think that would have been enough. But anyways, eventually that position on the ramp was broken, and Cure ended up losing the army, and then the consecutive, timing attack that followed as well. I wonder what Cure is thinking at this point. I think he probably wants to go back to bio, because that game number 1 was, a little bit sloppy, right? He shouldn't lose that much to a bunch of Zerglings and Banelings. I actually know, historically speaking, Serral is a big fan of going for aggressive pushes on these types of maps. So I've seen him go for like a lot of like Roach Ravager pushes on a map like Triton. So we'll see if maybe that's something he wants to pull off in this particular game as well. Kind of interesting, actually, how he's not scouting around with this Overlord. Most of the time, whenever we see Zerg players making that 13 Overlord, which is literally every single game, but they will send the very first Overlord, the one you start off with, across the map, and then the second one scouts around for, say, proxy barracks. I guess on this map he's fine just, knowing if it is coming from any of these 3 areas. I guess that's what this Overlord is looking out for right now. Don't have to take a risk that way. But I wonder really what we're going to see in this game. Wouldn't be surprised if Serral honestly just goes for the same style again. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Then again, though, you don't really want to be known as the guy who's just playing the same strategy every single time. And while Serral, I think we may all be a little bit critical, especially in like his first couple of years. He really was doing the same stock standard builds pretty much every single time. He's become extremely good at just mixing it up at the correct moments. So Drone once again moves on over to the third base. 2 sets of Zerglings were produced, 2 Queens are coming up here as well. Link speed will probably start up in a little bit, but this is something to keep an eye out on. So Serral's currently sitting at 136. Okay, never mind. I thought maybe he is saving up a little bit of gas there. Maybe he goes for the Roach Warren. Wow, he even got a Zergling kill. Well, 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 would you look at that. Serral a little bit late. Well, purposefully that is. On that Link speed. And then ends up losing a Zergling as well. Not as flawless as in the previous games. Third hatchery, though, does go up. 1 Overlord here on the other side of the map. Does he still have 2 drones and gas? He does. So I guess Overlord speed again. This is actually a little bit strange, though. Serral, I mean, he scouted the top of the ramp somewhat. Not really, though. Looks like he's gonna end up losing this Overlord. Is he? Well, no. I think it will just barely live, but that is very close. Oh my god, 5 health. Well. Zerg players are always scared of Marines walking around. Terran players never do that, though. Why do Terran players not move around here? I guess he's scared that there's a bunch of Zerglings or something on this side of the map. Anyways, Overlord speed here will be coming up in just a bit, and it looks like this is just going to be your good old standard macro game once again. 1-1-1 being played here by the Zerg, or by the Terran player. A little bit different this time around because it looks like the third command center was produced before the starport. So that's actually very greedy. Considering this is match point here for Serral, going for the third CC before the starport is definitely a little bit of a cheeky one. Especially because Serral's quite well known for going for like those Roach Ravager attacks on this map, but does decide to apparently risk it for the biscuit, and looks like it will pay off this time. Once again, though, everything gets scouted. So Serral knows at this point he doesn't really need to worry about battle cruisers. He's seen the lack of tech lab over on that starport, so he doesn't really need to worry about, say, like a Banshee opener either. It is once again going to be that bio-based style. I like this. Honestly, it seems to be the style that he's most comfortable with. So I like the idea of Cure just playing his bread and butter, you know? Don't mix it up. Do what you're good at. Do what you did against, for example, Dark, when you took him on. He showed some amazing control with that bio army. I can't complain here whatsoever. Goes for the reactor right now on the starport as well, so he can start producing a couple of those med effects here in just a little bit. Now here's the Hellions. Zerg is actually in a little bit of a dire scenario. If these Links get a... Oh, okay, well, never mind. I almost doubted Serral. Okay, believe me. In the meantime, though, in the main base, yeah, that Liberator is actually getting a couple of kills. Looks like it's got 4 worker kills right now. Nicely done. Eventually, though, this one likely also will be cleaned up. Yep. You can see the debris right there lying on the ground. But that's already a nice bit of mining time that's lost there. And I like this a lot better as well because the third command center was taken so very early, right? So, I mean, worker killed-wise, yeah. Units lost-wise, yeah, it's not going to look great here for the Terran. I mean, actually, it looks pretty great. Never mind. Apparently, a queen ended up going down as well. But you got to keep in mind here that... wow, that's that Overlord from earlier. Another Overlord died. He also caused a lot of lost mining time there for the Zerg, right? Zerg has to, like, pull drones away, and it all just gets a little bit awkward. Okay. +1/+1, and I guess Baneling speed here in just a sec. Lara's already done. 2 med effects, though, get filled up with units. Serral is still scouting. Do you see what I mean? Like, I brought it up in the first game that we watched today. He is so diligent with the scouting. He's always scouting. The scary part about scouting is that not only do you need to know your own race and your own timings, you also need to know your opponent's timings and your opponent's race, right? Scouting for the sake of scouting doesn't really get you very far. You need to be able to read the different scenarios and know how to respond in the different scenarios as well. No Baneling speed yet, by the way. That is quite noticeable. The lair right now really only serving as a way to, like, get... Yeah, there we go. Oh my god, he actually forgot it. You see that? He starts it up right now. Oh, great target firing right there by the South Korean. Beautiful move there by Cure. At the same time, Zerglings are going in for a counterattack on the other side. Looks like the hatchery will live, but Serral probably anticipated the bailing speed being done at that point, which would have been a very clean defense. 1 SCV. Also, it's like, screw you! Get off my lawn! And, well, then he died. Anyways, this is, yeah, not ideal here for Serral. I mean, forgetting the bailing speed upgrade can be very, very painful. I don't think it's going to come into effect all too much, although, well, maybe Cure is actually making himself up for another timing attack. 1-1 just finished up. Combat Shields also just finished up, so he can definitely try to make something happen. He obviously doesn't know that bailing speed was forgotten. For all he knows, it just, you know, was about to finish. Serral is ready for, though, or for this push, though, in just a little bit. 1-1 is finishing up. Bailing speed is finishing up as well. 1-1 is actually huge. All this time, Cure had a 2 upgrade advantage, right? Having 2 upgrades more than your opponent is huge. Right now, though, not going to be the case. Bailing speed also finishing up in 2 seconds. Queens are probably going to be able to buy a little bit of time. Lings and Banes coming in for the big surround, and all of a sudden the swarm is here. You can try and run. Well, you can hide inside of a medivac, but you're going to have to get out of there. And that's exactly what Cure does. Actually, you know what? That fight looked like it was a good... it looked like it was about to go absolutely terrible there for the Terran, but very reasonable here in the end. A little bit painful there. Couple of units end up going down, but nothing all too crazy. Okay, now look, this is different than what we saw in that first game. 4th command center is coming up. Very critical. 2nd factory also coming up, and it looks like he's making the transition right now from siege tanks towards widow mines. I like it a lot. Already though, the Hydra den is coming up as well. Hydras do outrange those widow mines, so having those available is very helpful. A couple of tanks once again in a very good spot. And you know what? A Baneling drop. This is not something we see very often. I was wondering what those 4 Zerglings were doing. At the same time, by the way, a big push is happening on the other side of the map. But let's look at this Baneling drop as Serral unloads the Banes in the mineral line and gets an awful lot of damage done. At the same time, though, this push over here is slowly starting to gather momentum. That hatchery is awfully low. Queens don't have any energy anymore. If Serral wants to defend, he needs to pull the trigger here in just a little bit. And apparently, that moment is right now. Banelings, once again, looking to get the connection there on that juicy bio clump. Siege tanks will be picked up. And, well, speaking of getting picked up, the Marines are now safely inside of the medevac. And since there's really not that much anti-air, I mean, other than those Queens, there's not much that Serral can do to try and slow this down. Cure, once again, moving forward, this time around with the Widow Mines. I like it a lot. Serral actually panicking a little bit, makes 8 Overlords. 8 Overlords is very expensive. You can't just afford 8 Overlords at this point in the game. Maybe he anticipated his opponent, you know, going back home and not continuing the pressure. Lynx, though, trying to move in with the counterattack. They're now over at the 3rd base, and this base completely left alone. A little bit scary. A little bit dangerous. Not that much creep spread, though. Once again, since there's no creep over in this area of the map, Cure is going to be able to continue using this as a staging ground. Zerglings now actually stuck because of that wall that was created over there. Lots of Lings end up going down. Only a handful of SCVs go down as well. Great position here for Cure. +3/+3 is coming up. Serral very late once again on that 2nd upgrade. Liking this position here for Cure a lot. This time around, this is not a forced all-in, you know? Like, not what we saw in game number 1. Serral's attempting the exact same move. I mean, the Baneling drop was nice. That killed a lot. But, I mean, losing 16 SCVs at the 10-minute mark, very different from losing, 16 SCVs at the 4-minute mark, right? It's much easier to replace those workers at this point in the game. But once again, though, Serral's hunting with a group of Banelings over at the 3rd base. Good response, though, so far by the Terran. Well, it was good, okay? Up to that moment. Up to that moment, it was pretty good. This position, though, is so dangerous. Target firing down a little bit at a time. Baiting that Zerg army towards those Widow Mines. Lynx actually setting themselves up, but there is already a planetary fortress over there. I think that this hatchery is as good as that, though. Well, once again, Zerg decides to commit. The Widow Mines, though, in very powerful positions, trying to get the big detonations on their bio balls. Siege tanks are gunning away at those Banelings as well. Good control there once again by Cure, but he does end up losing a lot at home as well, as the Lynx decided to move up that ramp. Reinforcing Terran units, though, are doing a phenomenal job. Eventually, it looks like the hatchery is gonna end up taking critical damage. Can you please finish it off, mate? I guess he's actually smelling blood in the water. He's like, you know what? I don't need that hatchery. I could just go ahead and win right here, right now with the Banelings. Ugh. Still morphing in. I feel like this is a gamble, man. Why would you not kill the hatch? It would create such an awkward position here for Zerg. Yeah, I think that was actually a little bit of overextension there by Cure. I mean, he still is very far ahead, right? He actually has 3-3 upgrades just about to finish. So he certainly wants to continue to pressure. But, I mean, killing that third base probably would have been a bit of a... Actually, it's the fourth base, isn't it? I don't know. Anyways, it probably would have been a little bit of a better move once again, though the bio units are in a little bit of trouble. But Serral is constantly forced to move off creep. Cure denied the map layout absolutely beautifully. And that means he obtains the victory here in game number 3. We find ourselves on Simulacrum. Luckily, it seems like we have a series on our hands. I mean, it would be a little bit lame if Serral would just end up winning 3-0, right? Like, that would be that would be a little bit unexciting. Let us have a look at what will go down on this particular map. I like that a lot, though, for Cure, right? He very much so abused the terrain of Triton. The way that Zerg is kind of forced to expand, I mean, you can also take that high ground base, but it also is very vulnerable to a lot of units from the low ground. I mean, siege tanks in good positions can gun that down as well. Serral really needed to reapply the creep in that center section of the map, but Cure just never left that location of the map alone, you know? Like, he just sat there and he just defended at home. Ended up losing a bunch of SCVs, yeah, but, I mean, losing SCVs and then killing like 40 Zerglings is not the worst trait in the world, right? Like, losing like 16 or so SCVs, but in the meantime also killing tons of Lings and Banes. Not necessarily the worst trait, especially if you can hold position in the middle of the map. The thing is, though, right, when you sit in the middle of the map for too long and you don't reinforce it for a little while, you also are in a very risky position because Zerg is always going to be producing units. They're not going to really squeeze out a lot of drones at that point in the game, so you can't really go all too crazy. Hey, by the way, bit of a different build this time. Serral decides to go for the pool first. Very quick gas here as well. Actually, that may have been a gas first. Follows it up with a hatchery, so this is certainly not going to be like a one base all-in or something like that, but it is going to be a build that's probably designed to throw Cure off a little bit. There's the queen. There's the set of Zerglings. SCV, once again, ventures across the map. Small moves like this don't seem very significant, but it's very critical. If you don't send this SCV across and you just rely on the Reaper to get across the map and scout instead, you can actually lose the command center on the low ground to the first 2 Zerglings. It doesn't sound very significant, but look at that timing there. Beautiful by Cure. Knows the moment at which he needs to send out that SCV. And right now, that means the Reaper, guess what, is gonna be home to deal with those Lings that won't have Link speed done just yet. Now imagine, right, if he wouldn't have gone for that SCV, Reaper would have gone straight across the map. These Lings would have been rallied all the way towards the natural of the Terran, killed the SCV, and at the very least slow down the CC significantly, sometimes even killing the CC. Slowing down the CC, though, alone is already massive, because Terrans don't just rely on that economy, they also rely on the supply. Now, this is a bit of a different pool first opener, though, because there is Link speed. I don't really know exactly how this Link speed is gonna affect the early game. Third hatchery is coming up, so Serral by no means going all in with this. Oh, nicely done there actually by Cure. He found the Zerglings. Link speed is still a little while from finishing. Yeah, I'm liking this position here for the South Korean Terran quite a bit. Starts up the orbital command completely uncontested. Is going to be able to switch on over here to go for Hellion production. This time around, doesn't go for the third command center before starting up the starport, which I also think is a good move. And, well, maybe he even wants to make the transition here in a little bit to, like, say, for example, a Banshee. I wouldn't mind that. Roach Warren coming up, by the way. Really quick Roach Warren. That's like a 3-minute Roach Warren, actually. You don't make a Roach Warren and then have 200 gas and do nothing with it. This is definitely going to be a timing attack here from Serral. I guess the Zerglings aren't actually here to deal damage. They're here to deny scouting. So the third hatchery has been scouted, probably because Serral allowed it. He wants the Terran player to think everything is normal, but look at that. Roaches are already coming up. This is an extremely aggressive push. And I'm starting to be a little bit worried here for Cure. Now, this is actually massive. So the standard for Terran is to either go for a Viking into a Banshee, go for a Liberator immediately, or go for a Battlecruiser. going Banshee straight up is actually very uncommon, and it may just accidentally scout what it is, or it may just accidentally counter, rather, what it is that the Zerg player is going for. If this was a Viking into a Banshee, it would be game over. If it was a Liberator, it would be game over. If this was a Battlecruiser opener, it would be game over as well. Cure blindly decided to go for the Banshee, and that is absolutely amazing for him. Serral doesn't know at this point, but he's about to find out. He probably wants to morph in a couple of Ravagers. He's got 150 gas right now. Ay. Yep, that is not what you want. That is not what you want at all. So there's one Ravager being morphed in. Now, this isn't immediately a perfect situation for the Zerg player, or for the Terran player, rather, but I mean, it makes it much better. Yeah. Okay, he's just droning. He's just droning immediately. This is, for all intents and purposes, an all-in here by the Zerg. It needs to deal damage, and look at this funnel that Cure has created as well, allowing these Hellions, despite them usually not being very good against this army, to deal a lot of splash damage against those clumped up Roaches and Ravagers. All of it gets cleaned up. I mean, that was beautiful defense. 2 workers only go down, and here's that counter attack. So, Serral in the meantime decided to go up towards the lair. He doesn't have Spore Crawlers yet. He did also make a whole bunch of workers, but he needs to hold on against this counteroffensive. Banshees, for some reason, already activated their cloaking field way out in the middle of the map. Maybe a little bit of nerfs kicking in here as well for Cure. That is not really necessary. But there we go. These Hellions get into a good spot. They get a lot of damage done so far. Queens are being picked off. The thing is, right, even with Spore Crawlers, yeah, you can maybe detect the cloak units, but once the Queens fall, eventually the hatcheries will fall as well if you don't have enough to shoot those Banshees out of the sky as well. And there it is. Cure wins game number 4. Alrighty, so that brings us to map number 5 in this best of 5 series. It's match point for both of these players, and this is actually the qualifying match as well. So the player that ends up winning this game is the one that qualifies themselves for IEM Katowice, which is a $400,000 tournament. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. Apparently, actually, if I understand correctly, starting next year, since Blizzard is making a bunch of changes to the pro scene of StarCraft, I made a video going over the future of StarCraft 2. Actually, I'll go ahead and include a link in the information box in the top right-hand corner of the video in case you want to go ahead and check that out. I made a video going over all of the details when it comes to the future of StarCraft. But I believe IEM Katowice starting next year is going to be where the world champion actually gets crowned. So it's a little bit different than what we have right now, where BlizzCon was always the place where the world champion gets crowned. Well, at BlizzCon there will still be a tournament, but it's not going to be the World Championship Series Grand Finals anymore. I believe that will be over in Poland. Anyhow, it's an important tournament regardless. I'm sure that both of them would like to have a piece of that pie. Usually whenever Serral loses a game after playing a cheeky one, he pretty much always just goes back to his bread and butter, macro style. Wouldn't be surprised at all if we see him once again go for the Hatch Gas Pool into like the Link speed and then into like the Overlord speed. The Overlord speed seems to have been very, very reliable in scouting so far. Doesn't really seem to cost him all too much. I mean, I haven't seen him take any early game damage or, you know, not be able to produce enough workers because of it. It seems like it's just completely flush with the build order. So I wouldn't be surprised if we're going to be seeing that once again here as well. Likewise for Cure, wouldn't be surprised if he once again decides to go for that bio-based style. Seems to be what he's most comfortable with. Seems to be the style that he likes the most. Interestingly enough though, because, well, like I mentioned, all of the other Zerg players really don't like playing very much against Terran Mech, but at the very least Serral seems to have a bit of a better answer. Once again, SCV Scout goes across, confirms that the path is clear for the Reaper to go across. He saw that the creep was already on the low ground, so that means the hatchery was down. And that's all the information you really need. Queens are going to come up here in a second. 4 Zerglings will be available as well. And you know what? The whole dance starts again. Reaper tries to get a kill on Lynx because players have gotten too good. Back in the day, it was normal to lose a drone against a Reaper, but really that doesn't happen anymore. Getting a creep tumor kill is the best you can get. That happens quite regularly still. And you know what? Ooh, that was very close. It almost happened. He probably could have gotten it if he actually sacrificed the Reaper. The issue, though, with sacrificing the Reaper is that you immediately find yourself in a really tough position as well, because when the Reaper is dead, you can't really get a whole lot done anymore. One thing I actually kind of would have liked to see Cure do here, since Serral is leaving 2 drones in gas, right? His third base is actually delayed a little bit. I would love to see Cure actually try to deny that third hatchery with an SCV. So one of the things that I see a lot on the ladder, and one of the things I like to do as Terran on the ladder, is scout the natural, just like Cure was doing here, to send the Reaper across, and then if you know it's a hatch first, to patrol that SCV over at the third base to try and slow it down. Because every single time, I'm pretty sure, Serral has been hiding a drone somewhere like over here or something over here, to like take the hatchery at a bit of an odd timing. I feel like just delaying that would be quite big. Obviously, you would only delay it so much, but I feel like that's a nice way of putting yourself in the driver's seat. Anyways, once again, Nematized Carapace is going to finish up. That's the Overlord speed upgrade. 2 Overlords rather, are already waiting. Jimmy the Marine has been tasked with killing both of them. Even though he's got 2 arms, he doesn't have 2 guns, so he's going to be able to only gun this down. And once again, absolutely perfect scout there for Serral. He sees the time of the 3rd CC. He sees the timing of that cloaking field upgrade. So he knows that he needs to get the Spore Crawlers going here in a little bit, or at the very least go up towards the lair so he can get the Overseers out. It's an instant lair as well, right? As soon as he scouted it, it's an instant lair. Just immediately goes up towards the lair. It's interesting though, because like I mentioned earlier, the scouting, yeah, that's nice, but you also need to know exactly what it is you need to do against all of the different variations. And when it comes to like these variations, there's about 1,000,001 of them. Serral once again scouts out here, 4.5 minutes apparently. That's the moment where he's like, okay, 420, sent the Overlord back in. It's not 420 blaze it, it's 420 scout it. He figures out at this point that it is going to be a bio transition. I don't think that's what Serral thinks, by the way. 420 scouted. Well, hey, it's a good one to remember, though. At least it will get stuck in your head. But he knows exactly what it is he's going up against right now. Wouldn't be surprised to see the Baneling nest here. Oh, there it is already. And the Baneling speed upgrade as soon as he's got the gas for it. Notice here, by the way, how late he's taking the additional gases. It's one of the most common mistakes that I see on the ladder all the time, or the people that I coach all the time. Taking gases too early, one of the biggest mistakes. Most of the time at this level, we see players taking full mineral saturation on both the natural and the third before they add on any more than 1 gas. It's just something to think about if you are a kind of guy who's also taking their gases a little bit too quick. Likewise for Terran, you usually don't need them as quick as you probably think you do. Oh wow, gets a full mule. That's pretty big. Very painful. You're out of position for a sec. Serral snatches one of those mules. +1/+1 coming up for both players. And we're once again transitioning towards a very standard macro game. There's those 2 Banshees. He's really been favoring that Banshee opener quite a bit, actually. He didn't go for the Viking this time around either. So I wonder if this is primarily Cure playing safe against a potential Roach push, or if this is actually something that Cure is just comfortable with doing right now. Because we've seen these roaming Banshees a couple of times already. I actually wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of Zerg players right now going for those Roach Ravager pushes. And, well, these kind of openers just blind counter them, right? You don't even need to scout at that point, because you know that those builds are just going to be held, like we saw in the previous one. Once again, though, here's the Baneling drop. I guess the advantage of going for that Overlord speed early is that you can start executing this kind of stuff much quicker as well than most Zerg players would. Here we go. Ooh. Serral, why are you not doing it, man? Come on, I want to see fireworks. Come on, dude, please. Just fly it in, dude. No, he's waiting. This is a cheeky Serral right here. He wants to wait until the Terran player is occupied. Probably doesn't want to engage until like these Marines over here are the ones that are in focus. And yep, there it is. Ay. Not today, Serral. Not today. He's like, well, I mean, Cure is human, right? Ooh, that's actually really good. Now you get nothing. He knows that his opponent is good enough to just pull back in time. So he was hoping that the Terran player would be looking away while microing these medevacs over here. Not gonna happen. Cure is on point. +2/+2. Once again, coming up a little bit sooner for the Terran. We see the Banshee getting picked off almost immediately, though. Well, say goodbye, Banshee. There you are. Maybe it's like a rescue mission, you know, NORAD 2. Remember that brood worm, or no, actually, I think it's the original StarCraft, where you have to rescue the NORAD 2. Maybe that's, no, never mind, actually. the corpse of the Banshee is already gone as well. It's like it never even existed. And once again, we're transitioning to what the Hydraling Bane style versus a Marine siege tank army. I kind of feel like this is the classic StarCraft, you know? This is the StarCraft we all know and love. I don't think there's anyone out there that enjoys watching StarCraft that doesn't enjoy watching some good old Marine tank Marauder, you know, medevac kind of style, going up against that Ling Bane army. It's the best. I really like it. It can be a little bit slow, especially at the highest level, because the players are so good. If you've played the game a bunch, you probably know how easy it is to lose as both Terran and Protoss. Or as both Terran and Zerg, actually. Not Protoss. There's no Protoss in TVZ, believe it or not. Serral once again setting up a massive counterattack, though. So he's probably just relying here on Lynx and Hydras and stuff to hold anything here. A couple of Zerglings have already shown themselves at the same time. Ooh, Hydras actually moved forward, got themselves a medevac. Okay. Oh, wow. That was actually very impressive as well. Serral saw the siege tank. It probably didn't see all of those Marines, but he decided to pull back immediately. I think a lot of us would have committed there. I would have lost all those units. Didn't achieve anything, but I would have felt like Serral, only to find out that Serral apparently pushes back whenever he gets countered like that. This is scary, though. This is what I was talking about earlier, right? Yeah, you can sit in the middle of the map, but if you're idle for too long, you can get surrounded very easily as well. This is on the perimeter of the creep. Serral doesn't really want to move in. He knows that the Terran's probably out there, but he doesn't want to fight this army off creep. This is the position that Cure won from, though, earlier. Does he have a 4th command center, by the way, this time around? He does not. No, he does not. So, once again, it's do or die here. Serral knows it. He's been scouting better than I have, despite having, you know, me-perfect vision, that is. Here we go, though. The big Zerg surround is coming in from every single angle. The Banelings, they are looking for those juicy Marine clumps. If they can connect, they're going to be in a phenomenal position. And since the Lings and Banes were not committed to the counterattack this time around, they are in plentiful numbers. Still, though, Cure has got a massive force. Reinforces this with a ton of additional Marines as well. Only a handful of Banelings are morphing in. You got to be careful, though, Cure. You cannot just dash onto that creep. This is where that creep spread is so big. Just having a little bit more creep spread, right? Having those tumors go one stage further is absolutely massive. If Cure would have been able to, like, siege up that tank over here instead, right? Then all of a sudden the third base is in a lot of trouble. Right now, though, this creates once again an opportunity for the Zerg to get their army back in position. I like this. Look at this. Lings set up for the counterattack. Any siege tank right now is nice. Oh, I love it. I didn't even see the medevac. Any siege tank here, like I was saying, is nice. It's even nicer if Terran snatches it out of the ground into a medevac. I'm getting giddy just watching these these two players duke it out. Look, guys, I know I play video games for a living, but realistically speaking, I'm just a massive fanboy. As you may have noticed, I really like this game. I'm looking at this army, though, of Terran, and it's not really looking that menacing. I would love to see Marauders at it, actually. Just Marauders, just to soak up some of those Bane hits. Here we go. Once again, though, the Zerg army is coming in off creep this time. Not usually what you want. Terran's actually backing up to watch the safety of creep. I don't know if that's what you want to do. A lot of the Terran units get shot out. Cure, GG's out. He decided to stick around for just a little bit too long. He lost focus for just a little bit. Serral seized the opportunity and snatched the victory out of the hands of Cure. Beautiful series, but you can really see, though, how close Cure is getting to beating the best of the best. With a little bit more practice, guys, and I know I keep saying it, but with a bit more practice, maybe a month or two, I feel like Cure could absolutely smash Serral. I mean, these games, it kind of felt like Serral got a little bit lucky here at the end as well, right? These games have been absolutely phenomenal by the Finnish Zerg player. Not to take anything away from him whatsoever. That was gorgeous play there by Serral, but I mean, he needed to get a little lucky to catch that Terran army off creep into a position where, you know, he could bait it to move onto the creep, right? You could see Cure moving a little bit indecisively there. But, I mean, if Cure can, like, patch those small gaps in his play, right? And I don't know how. I mean, you just have to be in better position. That's really what it comes down to, and that's so much easier said than done. But, I mean, he's improving still. And, yeah, I'm excited to see what Cure is going to look like, say, about a half year or so from now. Now, for those of you wondering, by the way, let me look it up real quick. Yeah, for those of you wondering, Serral did, with this, qualify himself for IAM Katowice. After losing to Serral, Cure then dropped down to the lower bracket of the tournament. He there went on to defeat Euthermal 2-0, Special 3-1, and with that, actually, Cure also qualified himself for the tournament. So there's no denying that that both of them will be at IEM Katowice. I kind of hope we're going to be seeing a rematch because I wouldn't mind that whatsoever. But anyways, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section of this video. I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? And I'll see you once again in the next one.